Good morning and welcome everybody to our 8th episode of Africa Talks. My IJP colleague Eka and I, we really welcome you for this 8th edition, a couple of days before Christmas. Africa Talks is designed as a digital platform for exchange of African and European topics, exchange of knowledge and ideas between journalists and experts from civil society from both continents. We want to learn, engage, and discuss about what are the impacts and consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm Marco Vollmer. I'm a member of the board of the International Journalist Programs, and I would like to introduce Eka, my colleague, to you.
Good morning. I'm Eka Neumann, the coordinator of the Africa program of the International Journalism Program. I'm excited to hear and learn about the latest developments from our today's guest.
Our topic for today, arts and culture. How does COVID-19 affect the sector and living culture? COVID-19 has disrupted daily life, politics and businesses around the world. But especially artists, musicians and other creatives have been hit in a hard way. The creative and cultural industry is one of the economic sectors most affected by COVID-19 due to restrictions on movement of people, goods and non-essential trade. The Organization of Economic and Cooperation Development, OECD, highlights that the crisis has sharply exposed the structural fragility of some actors in the sector. But unexpected challenges also provide room for great inspirations. How have artists and other creatives on the African continent and on the European continent responded to and maybe have been influenced by the pandemic? How have they used their art as a means of creativity or to uplift spirits? What would be needed to overcome the crisis? This and other questions we want to discuss with our distinguished guests.
So today we have Eddie Hartiche. Hello, Eddie. It's great that you're on the panel. We have Barak.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. We have Barak Isabu.
Hello.
Hi,
good
Barak.
morning.
Good to have you.
Good morning. Yeah, thanks.
Good morning. And we have Melissa Perales. Hi, Melissa. And we have Njati Kabui, Chef Kabui. Great to have you.
Glad to be here.
So I would start introducing our introduction round. And I would start with Eddie. Eddie Hartiche is the director of Music in Africa. For more than 15 years, Eddie has been actively involved in the arts and culture sector, contributing immensely in the establishment of key structures on the African continent. And as an executive director of the Music in Africa Foundation, which is a non-profit Pan-African initiative, which he headed since its inception in 2011. Eddie has traveled across the globe and tried to set up networks and implemented various projects. So before establishing Music in Africa as a full-fledged NGO, Eddie worked for the Goethe Institute as a project manager, and previously he was the head of content and editor of South Africa's leading online music industry portal, Music Industry Online. He's also worked as a reputable music-related projects. That's what I wanted to say. Sorry. He's been in South Africa, and he's also been an active music producer and one half of the house music duo Epic Minds, and he has produced records with some of Africa's most talented acts. Welcome. Great to have you, Eddie.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Ika, would you want me to already respond to the questions?
No, we will continue with the others. And present everybody first, and then.
Okay.
Marco, I'm not sure we can hear you right now.
I was muted, sorry.
Oh, yes. Now it's perfect. Thank you.
I just wanted to say sorry, Eddie. We just make the short introduction round, and then we start with your input, okay, Eddie? I would like to introduce to all of us Baraka Isabu from Tanzania. He is the director at Action Music Tanzania, a music training institution in Dar es Salaam. Baraka is a music composer, arranger, and producer, and one of the top pianists in Dar es Salaam, with passion and soul in his fingertips. He's the founder and leader of the best-known bands in Dar es Salaam, the Core Band. He has performed with a wide variety of local and international artists at festivals. And among many others, he performed and recorded on John Lisu's first live DVD, performed and arranged for Joel Luaga's live DVD, and arranged, performed, and produced Esther Mndodo's Mfururufu album. So we are very pleased and very proud that we have you on the show. Welcome, Baraka.
Thank you.
So we have Melissa Perales. Hello, Melissa. Melissa is part of Music School Berlin, the Music Pool Berlin, and Night School. Thank you. So Melissa moved from Chicago to Berlin in the 90s. She's since then organized an international film festival called Cycles of Confusions Independent and Underground Film and Video Fest. She owned a restaurant. She began booking and promoting live shows and film screenings under the moniker M Soundtrack. As a concert promoter, she presented international acts on monthly venues such as Schokoladen, Akut, or Cantina at Bergheim. And since Melissa is a board member of All Together Now, a platform for new strategies in culture, music culture, and music business. And Melissa's passion in soundtracks, and therefore she started Supertape. And also in 2017, she co-founded and curated a festival which is called We Make Waves, a Berlin-based network for women, trans, and non-binary music. So in 2019, she started her next mission, which is called Night School, and also which is a platform for female identifying and non-binary people working in music or creative industries. And what else? And she had the initial idea to form Music Pool Berlin and was part of the development of the project, and which provides consultation and training for musicians and people working in the music business. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks.
Our fourth guest is Nyati Chef Kabui. He is an internationally celebrated organic chef, urban farmer, and food activist. Kabui is joining us from, I think, New York, from the United States. So it is in the middle of the night. Thank you really for waking up to be part of this show, Kabui. He was born in Kenya into a family with a history of approximately 300 years in farming. His mother being a coffee farmer and his father a restaurant owner, both of whom took an active role in the Kenyan independence movement. Immigrating to the United States at the age of 20, Chef Kabui earned master's degrees in both medical and urban anthropology at the University of Memphis and bachelor's in political science and philosophy studies. In college, Kabui started speaking and doing community work around issues of social justice. He led a community farming group that built food gardens for members to strengthen community ties and promote food sovereignty by working together to create sources of local food. He also ran a demonstration farm in Durham and in Essex to educate people on sustainable, intensive urban agriculture. Welcome, Chef Kabui, on this show, and very honored to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me.
So, before we start with Eddie's input, I would like to introduce our graphic recorder, Wiebke Koch. And she is going to do taking graphical notes and summing up what she hears from her end. And so we will either see her right now. Yes, there she is. Hi, Wiebke.
Hi, good morning. My internet froze for a moment.
So can you show us already what you have prepared?
I can.
Great. So there we have an
There you
idea
go.
what
So
you're going to do.
Yes, that's the canvas I've prepared, and I'm sure that after the hour.
Yes, great. So it's still an empty, halfway empty piece of the document, but I'm sure it will be brought to light and a lot of designs will come up. Thank you, Wiebke. So furthermore, I would like to invite our participants to contribute to our discussion. You're more than welcome to enrich our talk with your questions and comments. You can also leave comments under our Facebook or YouTube stream. And now, Eddie, the floor is yours. If you could limit yourself to 5 minutes so that everybody will have time, that would be appreciated.
Yes, thank you. So I think, as everyone has said, we are mostly working in the music sector across the continent, and in addition to being a news platform or an information platform, we also actively carry out projects around capacitating the industry, training, mobility funding, conferences, and many other things that are, essentially developed with a view to help artists upskill or improve the way they work or connect, exchange, etc., etc. So my view, I think, in this panel today will be mostly around COVID. Within its influence within the African music space, because this is where we are mostly working. Well, I mean, what can we say? I mean, I think it's quite obvious that the effect of COVID on the music space on the continent is going to be huge. It has already been, I think, a devastating episode for a lot of us here. But also there are a few things I think that we are learning, and there will be a few positives that we can take out of this and hopefully build from there to improve this sector. So let me just start with a few of the obvious challenges. Here at the Music in Africa Foundation, what we did in the first month of the COVID really being acknowledged as a pandemic, and Africa taking many governments taking steps to close down the countries in March there around, we wanted to find out what was the immediate financial implications and the impact on the African music space. And of course, this then relates to culture and other things that obviously come with music. And so in a space of 30 days, in April, we got responses from all over Africa. I think we had about 40 countries participating in that survey. And the results were quite disappointing for us. Not that they were not great, but the information was quite, I think, saddening, because what was quite clear was that up to 85% of the respondents were already saying that they have lost massive income. And what was even more worrying is the fact that a lot of them did not have alternative sources of income. And now when you look at the life of an average musician, these are people who are earning, research that we've done before points to the fact that an average musician earns less than $100 per month. We're talking about the musician who is playing a guitar, who is a solo artist. Of course, there are different tiers in the industry, but before COVID, although the industry, the sector on the continent has always been prolific and produced a lot of, cultural goods, artists were already struggling to make a living out of their music. So you can imagine the impact that COVID now has on a lot of musicians. Here recently in South Africa, there is a study that actually says, more than half of South Africa's creative force could change professions for good because of COVID. And this is quite true and quite obvious. Events are shut down. Musicians are not able to do live performances. And the consumers of music on the continent, who have generally been, I think, not as flexible when you compare to other markets in terms of purchasing music, they have more burdens. So I think we don't expect music to die down, but we do expect that there are going to be a lot of financial strains, which will ultimately, affect how the industry functions. So now we have more digital means and initiatives around, like still reaching audiences through alternative platforms. And this is interesting to see. The report that I just mentioned, for anyone who has got an interest, you can find it on our website, musicinafrica.net. It's quite detailed with regards to just the financial impact of COVID on the African music market. And then in closing, I think, obviously, there are good things also that I think are being fueled by COVID. And one is the emphasis on the recorded music market. Over the past 5 years or so, within the decade, we started to see more artists really, investing more on live performances. But this will change ultimately, and it should change, and there should be a balanced, I think, representation, because recorded music, in other words, music that they record in the studios and put on the market, that was taking a knock, because clearly live music is more, I think, lucrative for a lot of players. But now, because of COVID, artists are home, artists are being creative, and they're creating more music than ever before. In fact, a lot of critics on the continent believe that this is possibly the year where in which Africa has produced the highest number of tracks. The quality is yet to be seen and verified, but I think it's quite obvious that Africa is pushing lots and lots of music in this period, just because artists have got more time. And as you can imagine also, I mean, the whole situation with COVID, it does really play with your, you artists are vulnerable. And then I think usually artists tend to be more creative when they are vulnerable. And this is something that will be interesting to see. There are more issues that I'm sure I'll get to.
We will discuss.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eddie. We will discuss these issues, I think, during the next more or less 45 minutes now. Baraka, you are one of the top pianists in Dar es Salaam, as I said in the introduction, and founder of the Covet. Did you remember your last public performance? When was it?
Sorry?
Did you remember your last public performance? When did you perform? You know, how long is it? How long did it take? You know, or when was your last public performance? I'm interested.
It was in the beginning of this year.
Okay, so you're still remembering?
It was around yeah.
And what was it? It was in Dar es Salaam.
Yes.
So how are you affected by the COVID crisis? That's my question.
Actually, the effect is so huge for us musicians, because most of us, we are session musicians and we depend on performances. So it has been a very tough year, financially and everything. I have two sides that I can talk. Mm-hmm. Let me start with the academy first, then I'll talk as artists later.
Okay.
We started our program this year, January, And then the bad thing is that the corona got in the way. The effect is really huge because we experience almost a 50% dropout of students who enrolled with academy, and then the main problem was they could not sustain their studies because of difficulties, the financial problems. So it has been tough in that way. But also as a musician, as Ed has mentioned, it's real tough for us because we actually, for Tanzania, it's a little bit different. We don't have that much restriction because we can still meet, but in very small groups with careful, like we need to take care of ourselves, something like that. So it has been tough because most of our gigs are cancelled and everything like that. So the good thing about this is most of us musicians, I think we have got enough time to prepare ourselves, and most of us, as Eddie mentioned, we are working mostly in the studio and a lot of rehearsals. We are like we this year has been like a year of preparation for something like that, because most of us, we have been locked inside and doing rehearsals, doing records. But is the time at the moment that we had opportunity to think about other ways of earning or getting income apart from performance, like public performances. Yeah, there have been a lot of digital performances, but as you know, our situations in Africa, there are still some difficulties, Yeah, so it has been not that well, but we are getting better as the days goes on, and yeah, something like that. I think that's what I can say for now.
Okay, thank you, Baraka, for now.
Yeah.
We've heard from Eddie, we heard from you, Baraka. This sounds pretty depressing on the arts and culture sector. Melissa, from your end, being in Berlin and very active and well connected in the arts and culture sector, what is your impression? What are your observations?
Hello.
Yes.
I also very similar to what both Baraka and Eddie said. It's similar here for artists. Since I'm also working in the context of consulting musicians, as well as, of course, myself as a somebody who makes events and concerts regularly on festivals. We see definitely across the board. I mean, not only the musicians, but also the whole industry has been hit in a very big way. So every aspect which is attached to the artist. So we have tried to through this, since the pandemic, tried to figure out how to kind of work with each other and to bring everything together. I say that my jobs, both as a consultant with Music Pool, which is like a weekly, I talk with artists weekly. I make appointments with them. They talk to me mostly about the concerns as artists, but a lot of it is also a little bit like therapy as well right now, because we have a lot of conversations, which of course get to what's happening with them as people. Not so much the financial side, although that's a factor, definitely. But a lot of it is about how they are as people, as artists, and their concerns in general, what to do, not only now, but in the future, which I think is a good question anyway, with all the different aspects, as well as myself as an event person, to rethink how I would like to live, react, work after this process is over with. I think it's like, because of my many hats, I've seen many different aspects of the business, also through the festival this year that I ran. There's with all the cancellations, to alternatively see how we can support the artists through, especially if we have, in Germany, we're very lucky to have public funding. And this was one way that we could support the artists, as well as my other projects where it's more about activism and supporting female identifying trans and non-binary artists. There, we also used our public funding to help people just maybe survive a little bit, and also give them a platform of which to speak with each other, to share what's going on. So we have on my Instagram, I asked a lot of artists to write in, talk about what we're going through, any tips that they could share with each other. Just, I think, this kind of community spirit to keep alive, and to let people know they're not alone sitting there at their houses or in their studios or wherever they're presently at. So a lot of mine has been a lot about helping them, the artists, with a mixed bag of what I'm normally doing. But I think I see a change in general within the music business, and also the music, the artists, and living in Berlin, towards a more humane way, maybe, of going about each other, because of everyone's kind of in the same boat. So whether you are some industry, a lot of me, or someone who didn't, you kind of are starting to understand each other possibly more in this situation, and think about what we want to do in the future. So I think a lot of that's, I would say, the positive aspects which I got out of it are this, that we could stop for a moment to think about like what we were doing, what was actually good, what was not working, or anything, because artists are living precariously since the beginning of time. That's not a question that has not changed. But it's about, how is this fair? What is fair? How is distribution going? Do we have to have everything set to be on a commercial sense? So there's many aspects, I think, which we can ask ourselves as makers, as creators, and also fans or consumers. Right now, what's going on, which we can kind of come to the table differently, maybe after this is over, I hope. This is kind of, a thing that I'm working towards for myself and for the communities that I work with, and try to see what we can do to make it maybe possibly better afterwards.
Please unmute yourself.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Melissa, and thank you, Eka, for that information. Now we come to Chef Kabui. From your perspective as a chief and food creative, what is your opinion on the impact of the pandemic?
Do you want me to speak about Africa in general, or in the US?
And your special situation.
Okay, say that again.
And your special situation.
Yes. Oh, yes. I work mainly in the area of activism, and mainly in the area of sustainability, and also in how food is used as a weapon to disempower particular groups, whether it's people of African descent in the US or whether it's African, in the whole power dynamic. The COVID-19 has been extremely revealing for those, at least for the particular kind of work that I've done, because these are some of the issues we've been talking about for a long time. I've been consuming organic food since 1991. That's about 2 years since I came to this country. It was very, very clear to me when I first landed in the US that the food was definitely not healthy, even to a young 20-year-old. So digging or trying to understand that largely prepared me for things such as this. I wanted to be active in Kenya. I wanted to promote, more awareness, or what I call food literacy, so that more people can understand how the food system works globally. So myself, I've had to shift most of my focus because majority of the work was canceled. I work primarily with large institutions, nonprofits, putting on events at farms or different special spaces that I can use as a platform, my message. And majority of that work obviously has been canceled. But I've had some good news because the cut down in a lot of travel and just work that's involved in the primary work that I do meant that I've had enough time to concentrate on building a food literacy center in Kenya. So during the COVID, we were able to dig a pond in a place called Naivasha, which is land that was my family's land that I got a portion of, and the idea is to build a food academy, sort of a food academy there. But I call it food literacy center or food literacy and sustainability center because the main focus is creating broader awareness for the community and connected with some of the positive aspects that I've been able to achieve during my stay in the United States for the last 3 decades, and as well as other places. So the idea is to build a library, a kitchen, a facility where people can come and stay, some residency, and a demonstration farm that can have some of the most exotic types of foods that I've come across here in the South. And it's a combination of a South-South best practices or best flavors, because I'm combining some African flavors and flavors that I've largely learned from the American South and also in Kenya. So that's the facility. We were able to dig a pond. We were able to build some a cow shed, goat shed, and we are rebuilding my dad's old house. And and so we were able to do quite a bit. So that showed a lot of that came as a result of a lot of support from some of the people we've had to work with. So that has been positive in that side, on that part on my end. Obviously, it's been some challenge, but I guess for me, I choose to not to ignore, because some of the previous speakers have talked very well about the issues that most people are facing. There's limited income. But I probably can think, talking to people in Germany, thinking about the Hegelian dialectics of dialectical materialism. So you have some problems that led to these issues that brought about the rise of the problem that we have. We were living unsustainably, and people are living beyond our means. That's the whole illusion of capitalism. And people are alienated from their own people or from the things that are most important to them. And that means that we are going to experience severe shocks whenever something doesn't go right, which was probably for most people in my world was about to happen, because you can keep living unsustainably and eventually not face some of these issues. So what is the reaction? Then the reaction is to figure out how we can adjust and we can test some of the mechanism that we have in place to deal with some of the issues. So it has brought to bear, it's been a boon because it's brought to bear some of the things that we've been talking about. And we are glad to be learning more, and people are being forced to think outside the box. And I think those who are going to come out of this will come out of this better than any other time. We're being forced to change, as I am. And that's what I can say for right now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chef Kabui. We have, for me, I was thinking, people always look up to creative people, what are they doing in terms of crisis? What is their move forward? So also in terms of not being into crisis, but on the normal, let's say, a lot of people look up to what are their artists doing, what is the musician composing, what are they talking about, what are the painters, the producers, what are the creative people are doing, also the chefs, what is their approach, what is going to move us forward. So my question is, since this is now a very challenging time and it seems the creative industry itself is very much affected, how are you going to being so affected, how can you still contribute to bringing back life to all of us? Would somebody have an answer on this one, or would want to answer on that one?
I can take it if I don't mind taking it.
Yes.
I can say as a chef, that especially as a chef of African descent, and somebody who has had a great privilege of living in both worlds. Yeah, sometimes I make fun and say I'm the true African American because I have African culture. I'm African both culturally and obviously genealogically, and I'm also American. I've been living here for 3 decades. So what I can say is that the chef world was due for a change. The chef, or the tradition of chefs as we know it, was developed around France and Italy, and it was mainly a practice or a profession that dealt with cooking food for the most elite of the elite, the royal family, the kings, and his court. And the kind of food they cooked was really unhealthy food. That's why we have a lot of kings who are overweight and were suffering from diabetes, high blood pressure, and gout. And when the French Revolution happened and the king unfortunately was beheaded and the chefs didn't have any work, then they started cooking for the regular people. And essentially what happened is the same problem the loyal families were having now became equal opportunity destroyer of the larger population. So the chefs were about to change. We were a lot of chefs who are preparing a lot of food. That's why we have obesity as a major crisis in the globe. And you cannot have obesity in one part of the world and not have a major deficiency on another part of the world. So those are two crises that are happening at the same time, and they were about to happen. So the challenge is for us to be creative. That's what I'm saying. So there's a lot of creativity that's taking place now, and people have also just realized that eating the type of food that you do eat will have an impact when it comes to your ability to defend or to fend off a crisis such as COVID. Those people who are eating better survive slightly better or recover slightly better. So yeah, this creative space, people are offering classes, and food is really underappreciated and underdeveloped. People there's so much things that can happen in food. I'm cooking more here. I can do classes, and when things open up, people can do things on a small scale, so more intimate space. People can write. I write about food, so writing. I've worked in two. I'm working two. I've contributed to 2 books. And now working on a 3rd contribution. So writing also is important. So there's a lot of things to do about food.
Thank you. Are there other opinions on Eka's question in the round? Melissa, Eddie, Baraka?
Well, I think the question is one that I've heard in many platforms like this. How can artists still continue to contribute or to continue to create the cultural goods in this context, in this new normal? I think one thing that is important, especially in African terms, is that perhaps artists are actually not creating goods and they see it as a contribution. I think there's a long history of just artists or Africans being creative and music being a very central part of what we do here. So we joke a lot about how in Africa we sing when we are sad at funerals. we sing when we are happy. And at this point, we are not so happy, but the music continues. I think what changes is that the resources and the dynamics of those production systems that we're used to are changing because of the various constraints that are now coming thanks to COVID. Unfortunately, this discussion always then asks the question, who has to make the change that will capacitate musicians to continue to be productive? And I think, although in Africa we usually try to avoid government because of the long history that we've had with our governments here in as far as supporting the creative industry is concerned. That is unfortunately a discussion that is important, especially in these systems. I mean, I know one colleague here on this panel has already mentioned that in Europe, for example, there is public funding, and I think the systems for creatives, royalty systems, the admin systems are generally I think more reliable than they are here. Artists on the continent don't really earn royalties. If I'm a musician today or I'm a guitarist, the day I break my hand is the day I'll last eat. Why? Because I depend on the next show to get an earning, and I depend on that show to produce. So because our system is so fragile, we artists are in a hand-to-mouth situation. It just means that when we have, crises like this, we take a big knock. But I think government has a big role to play there. We need our governments to support us, to regulate the industry, not to give us money. But I think the main question is, what is the role of government in ensuring that the players who operate in the African music space are doing so fairly, and those who have got the authority to collect monies are accountable to the artists. That will solve a lot of problems for artists at this moment, because the challenge is that artists are not getting money, and they should be getting money.
And the point is, and the question is, if I may add this, the question here would be, as you said, there is public money in Europe, or especially here in Germany, for artists. But when you listen carefully to the voices here in the sector, then it is crystal clear that most of the industrial sectors are much more funded by public recovery funds than the cultural, than the creativity sector, so to say. And I wonder whether you feel that the voices of artists, of the cultural scene, is that heard enough? Yeah, are you feeling that you are heard in by politicians, by governments, or do you think that the role of culture, of the cultural sector, is still underestimated in this crisis? That would be my question.
Whom?
I will leave it to the other colleagues. I think this.
Yeah.
I can only speak for here in Berlin, for Germany. Most definitely, although we do have help, and probably much more than you're seeing on the continent, for artists, it's very limited. You saw initially quite a good, and the first few months help. But definitely in the last months, it's very difficult to, because a lot of the artists are freelance, they're not able to sustain because they don't qualify for the funds which are available. So if you don't own, you don't have an office, you don't have these costs which are for like business costs, you're not able to use them for your everyday life. So the money you receive, we're not able to. So this is something that's very big that's been happening. People are protesting about it as well, because I mean, in general, the artists are not where a company, as you said, in the industrial sector is bailed out, airlines and whatnot. The artists who are living with no security, mostly, especially artists which are working freelance, which most artists are, and having to pay all these costs themselves, insurances and whatnot, are not able to live on this. And now the system has definitely, you see, and as I mentioned earlier, like on all facets, not only the artists, but also the people that are working behind to support artists, to support the music industry that it works, are having these struggles and are not able to feel they're able to contribute what they're doing. So we see a lot of change in what people are deciding about their future jobs. So maybe leaving the music industry because they're unable to sustain and they don't know what will happen in the future. So there's a lot of future, as I mentioned, talks happening. That's more in not only musicians, but people working in the industry. But I think also Eddie made a good point, which also here you see, because it is quite, for Berlin, quite a global city, I work with mostly artists coming from other places. So a lot of these artists have been here without any network at all. So they're coming from different countries all over the world. They have had not the same support as German citizens or people living here on a visa. Which has allowed them to be able to live and sustain themselves. So there's what you've seen grow out of there has been again always put back into the community. So the communities have become back again and again to support themselves. So you see this community action, which of course is a great thing on a human level, and we see that. But it is, as you mentioned, it is. Would be nice to see at a level where we can rely more on funds being evenly distributed so that everyone is able to survive and also contribute back into the system. So this is how it obviously functions in the best way. And I hope that we start seeing some more of this in the outcome of this, and the more talks about this, about really making it more fair for everyone to survive in these societies that we're living in, and this global world that we're living in has not been friendly to a lot of people. And the projects I work on with intersectionality and more for marginalized persons, this is the biggest impact that we see because they are not having the support and structure in Berlin now to do that and support, relying on the communities. Communities are helping each other out.
Barak, are there communities in Tanzania who are fighting, engaging for the interests of artists?
Yeah, there are some communities here, but the problem here is creative industry is not of a high priorities of the government, you know. So the support has been very small, and because some of the people that are running, you know, like the main key player on the industry, I think they're working for their own benefit. So most of these societies have been fighting, but the struggle is real hard, and because of that thing, we have a very small support from the government. Yeah. So the main thing I think is for the artists and the creative sector to just help maintain itself, which is a long process. Yeah.
My question would be, in connection to that, would there also be the necessity to change as an individual consumer, so as an individual citizen? Would it be necessary to change the approach of the value of arts and culture? Would that be a way moving forward?
Yes. I think that's necessary. Yeah.
So, because from other talks, I remember we were talking in one of our last weeks ago some episode about women and gender, for example. So the women also being vulnerable and being affected by the changes and the effects of COVID-19 and lockdowns, they were strongly advocating towards trying to find new ways within the communities. And yes, of course, putting governments under pressure to provide funds and agenda, but also to self-empower the communities a little more. Would that also be something which you may be already working on or would be looking at?
As I said, I'm doing that in my work with Night School. This is our whole purpose, is basically doing this community work. We feel giving the platform. We are supporting. Since artists are not allowed to perform right now, we are giving them the allowance to give them some funding, that we have some money to perform something as if they were playing a real concert, and not just asking them to do something for nothing, just because to keep their representation. It's like we're showing that representation and we are helping support them financially, but also giving them a voice. We have allowing them to speak to each other, to talk to each other, creating any sort of events or digital ideas or inspirations which we can give to each other. And I think this is a very key part which has helped many people that I work with, as well as myself, through this, as you spoke as of the gender and women being having a very heavy burden in this, because I'm a mother. I work with 3-4 jobs at a time, and I have now school children at home that I have to take care of. So these kind of issues are very much seen as something that's coming from the community so much that nobody else really can help us out. But this, as I said, is a role which many people find themselves in right now. I do believe that people have more awareness for this, which maybe is something that comes out of it, which is good, that they understand what role that everyone in the cultural, the artists are playing, that the women are playing, that the marginalized persons are playing in society and contributing to, and need to be therefore also supported with infrastructure and financially, I hope.
Thank you. Chef Kabui, I have a question. Would you think, we were also speaking on previous talks about digitalization, sorry. Would you think digitalization is bringing us forward, supporting us in this, or what else do we need to, is there something else, some other qualities needed to bring the creative, or maybe your creativity as a chef and community activist further?
Yeah, I think digitalization is the biggest thing that can happen, because as I said, if I had to attend to this event in person, I would have had to travel. That's not good for the environment. It's not good for our time. It's not a smart way of using resources that are available. So digitalization is definitely one of the things that I believe conceptually will be here with us for a long time. But that will not take away the need for people to do things face to face. So there's more opportunity to do things more locally. So I'm being more involved in my local community because every time I have to do a gig outside of my community, here where I live locally, then that means I miss an opportunity to connect with the community. That's one. But also offers me the possibility, the same digitalization that allows me to do less travel, still allows me to do more work even outside. You just give the example of this forum where I'm attending at 4 o'clock in the morning. 5 o'clock in the morning, my time. And the work that I'm doing in Kenya, I'm able to do that because of digitalization. You know, I can get on various apps. I can see the project that's going on without necessarily being there. I can make choices. It allows me to make choices that otherwise I couldn't just make without the help of technology. So yeah, digitalization is going to play a big role in the way we think about the future.
Mm-hmm. As we are almost at the end of this talk, I would like to ask you, to ask every one of you in this on this panel, at the end, a personal question. What is your personal wish for next year, as we are more or less at the end of this year? What is your personal outlook and your personal wish for next year?
Yeah, my wish is that this pandemic should like done and get over with it, and then go back to the normal life. But also, it has changed our life for good, because things won't be the same again. I was about to speak about something. Anyway, there is. Let me talk a little bit about digitalization and the musician. I will talk about my environment here. Most of artists and musicians, they are people who are like. Maybe they dropped out of school, or their parents didn't manage to take them to school, and they are depending on the music, their way of life, their way of living. So, and when you talk about digitalization, you're talking about technology, and I think there must be a way that will enable artists how to engage themselves in the digital world. Most of us here, I know people, they wish that they could stream their music, you know, they could take it to the wider audiences digitally, but they can't do that because of the technical know-how, or the equipments, or those kind of things, because it also needs those kind of things. So I think there must be a way or initiative that will enable artists to be able to operate in this world, in this platform that we are now in. Yeah, that's my opinion and my wish.
Thank you, Baraka. Yeah. Eddie, your wish 2021.
Well, I think yeah, I think it's definitely what you said. We all want things to go back to some kind of normality. But I think more importantly for me, it's also, I hope that we don't forget what we have learned here. I mean, all the things that we're doing now, you know, last year we would not think about doing them, like even for us as an organization, to allow our staff from working from, you know, to work from home. You know, there's a lot of things that we were hesitant to do, I think, globally as a community, especially here on the continent. But COVID has taught us that it's actually possible people to work from home, flexi hours, to embrace digital in everything that it gives. And I hope that we as a community, we can learn and take everything that we learned and use that to be even better going forward.
Thank you.
My wish is that we take the lessons of the past. I agree with that. That's one of the biggest lessons that I've seen. But my wish is that we have more equity in the digital world, because digital world is great, but it's also very, very open to manipulation, and we don't want to take the same power imbalances that we had in inequities that we've had in the previous world into the future world. And I hope to write more. It's my wish for next year.
Thank you.
Melissa?
Yeah, also similarly, I hope that we are able to gather again, to go to cultural events again. This is my whole life energy in the last 20 years, 25 years has been only for this job. But I do want to take with me as well many things I've learned. I've learned so many skills in the last months, which I would not have done beforehand. So learning technical skills, which I had not had before, which I know can change a lot for myself and for the people that I'm working with, to be a good mentor in that respect, and see that I bring a lot of people with me and the artists that I can help into the 2021 with with a lot of hope and energy, that we can get things back to a place where we are able to be with each other in a space, keep the global aspect that we have open now through the communication like we're having today. We can learn so much from each other, and I think to able to listen to each other's stories is very important for the world to be connected again, which I think we lost this in the last years. And I feel like this is something I win every day when I'm able to participate in things like this, or to talk with other artists across the world, which before would felt so local and so bound to the markets or the place I'm in. And I feel this is a really advantage we should take to heart. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And we would like to have a very quick glimpse at what Wiebke did today. Maybe we can have a look what she did and what some of the things. Wow, yes, there's something has been happening there.
Wow.
And Wiebke, maybe just highlight one or two things quickly. So, and maybe you could zoom in so that we can, just see one or two things which you got.
One or two things will be very challenging. But, let me have it on the difference, maybe the commonality and the difference between Germany and the African continent. It seems both have been hit quite in a devastating fashion in terms of the effect COVID-19 has on the creative industry.
Could you please
even
zoom
though
in, Wiebke, so that we see a little bit something of the picture?
I am zooming, it doesn't translate.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so just continue. Sorry for the interruption.
I'll just refresh. So basically, the difference is that in Germany there is still some funding, even though not all the public funds are accessible to all the creatives, as I know myself as well. Whereas in Africa there is not much support in the first place. And the creatives actually have to stop and think for themselves what works and what doesn't, and use that as a chance. I also heard that the vulnerability of the artists often is the greatest opportunity and their greatest power. So hopefully lots of good will come from it. And I really loved how I heard about the connection between food and art culture, to that food is used as a weapon against African people, but also can be used for good, and to now adjust our lives to a life that's more sustainable, and to even use it as a weapon against COVID, to be more resilient and things like that.
Thank you, Wiebke. I take over by giving you an outlook for our next talk, which will be happening in January 14. And we are delighted to make an outlook for 2021 with a former president of Germany, with Mr. Horst Köhler, who is an Africa expert. And we really like to discuss with him his thoughts and expectations for the next year. And all of you who are following us via Facebook live stream or YouTube live stream are more than invited to be our guests on January 14th with our next talk.
Yes, and thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you very much for to our guests. We were very happy to have you here today. And please give us your feedback on Africa Talks IJP Orgs and the chat. And we are looking forward to discuss with you other topics in the future. So it's been great having you here, all of you today. Thank you so much.
We wish you
Thank
Merry
you.
Christmas and a good start.
Happy holidays.
And
And a happy
Thank
Happy
you.
New Year.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.